And it's pretty straightforward. Will you support Donald Trump in the 2020 election?
Yeah, so there is another high-profile Republican this morning who's dodging that question. This time it's Mitt Romney telling CNN, quote, "I will make that decision down the road." Well, he's joining dozens of House and Senate Republicans who appear reluctant to back the president's re-election bid.
I haven't even thought about that election.
It could be a completely different world by 2020.
That's a long ways off.
I think it is far too early to make a judgment of that type.
Talk about what might happen at that time is I think premature.
We have no idea who's going to run. Whether the president runs again or not, I think is very questionable, candidly.
Why wouldn't he?
I don't know. Why would he?
CNN White House reporter Jeremy Diamond with us live here. So, Jeremy, look, we know that the president and Romney, they've had a dicey relationship. That isn't a surprise. So why is this?
Yeah, it's certainly the case. Mitt Romney, the latest Republican to join these folks in saying that they're not sure if they want to support the president in 2020. It's a reflection, of course, of the president's current political standing, his approval ratings that he's facing, and, of course, the number of scrutiny and suspicion that he is facing over these, the Robert Mueller's probe, for example. But it is also a reflection, of course, of the tumultuous relationship between the president and Mitt Romney.
I don't think Mitt needs lots of money, but I'll certainly do whatever is necessary. We need somebody great as a president. I think he'll be a great president.
Being in Donald Trump's magnificent hotel and having his endorsement is a delight.
I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends. By the way, Mitt Romney is not one of them. Did he choke?
Here's what I know. Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud.
The last election should have been won, except Romney choked like a dog. He choked. He went, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe," he said.
I've had a wonderful evening with President-elect Trump. These discussions I've had with him have been enlightening and interesting and engaging. I've enjoyed them very, very much.
So this has been a love-hate, now love again relationship between Romney and the president. But Mitt Romney, despite getting the president's endorsement most recently for his Utah Republican Senate primary bid, he failed to clinch the 60% of delegate votes that he needed yesterday to actually clinch that nomination outright. Instead, he's going to be facing a primary challenge going up in June against another Republican in Utah for that Senate seat. There are a lot of local issues, particularly about the nominating system at play here as far as why Mitt Romney wasn't able to clinch that vote outright. But still, it is very interesting to see Mitt Romney now with the president's endorsement, and despite his past criticisms of the president, not able to clinch that nomination outright. He is, however, expected to clinch that nomination eventually. He is certainly still the favorite.
All right, Jeremy, stay with us. I want to continue this conversation and bring in CNN media, senior media correspondent Brian Stelter and deputy managing editor at the Weekly Standard, Kelly Jane Torrance. Brian and Kelly, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, Kelly, let me start with you. Is this a case of Mitt Romney is both too close to and too far from the president, especially in, of all states, Utah?
Yeah, Utah has seen probably the least amount of support for President Donald Trump in a red state. And I have to say, Romney is echoing what a lot of GOP lawmakers and others are saying lately, but he does look a little bit opportunistic with this. The guy had very strong words against President Trump during the election, during the primary, and then as soon as Trump was elected, changed his tune and reportedly was under consideration as Trump's Secretary of State. And it looks like he's just, supporting Trump when it suits him and when it suits his career. And I think that's one thing that he's going to have to worry about in Utah. He wasn't a shoo-in for this race, and a lot of people see him as a carpetbagger. He has only recently moved to Utah and changed his voter registration there just in the last few years. So I think he's got a few things that are all related to the fact that he looks a bit like an opportunist in many ways.
Let's put up the results from the 2012 primary here. And Brian, let me come to you. Now, there is obviously the element of the drumbeat that goes through the primary season and potentially inevitability. But look at these numbers. 93% Mitt Romney won the GOP primary in 2012. And he comes in second to a two-term state senator who, when asked why voters latched onto his message, his answer was, I don't know. I don't know. It's just my message. What happened to Mitt Romney?
It's good to see a raucous night of voting in Utah. You know, we're seeing the process play out. Now we'll have an actual primary in the state. I think, Victor, this is like one of the situations where all of politics is upside down. So as a result, the question of whether the president will run for re-election and whether his party will support him is an open question. Normally, we wouldn't be having this conversation, of course, but it seems to me the parlor game of American politics right now is how long do you think the president will last? You know, meaning 2020, 2024, his supporters say, or sometime before 2020. It actually makes analyzing the upcoming elections a lot harder, whether it's the midterms or the presidential. You know, we're still 88 weeks from the Iowa caucuses, but nobody really knows what's going to happen in those 88 weeks between now and then.
Finally, button this up for me, Jeremy. You don't see, or maybe you do, a scenario in which Donald Trump goes and rallies or campaigns for Mitt Romney in this primary season or moving forward?
Anything is possible, I would say, Victor. I mean, listen, we've seen...
I mean, that would be full circle, right? We're now to Donald Trump campaigning for Mitt Romney after all we've seen.
No, it definitely would be. But given the relationship that we've seen between the two men over these last several years, you know, going from fully supporting Mitt Romney in the 2012 campaign to bashing him during the 2016 campaign with the return fire from Mitt Romney, calling him a phony and a fraud, and then considering him for Secretary of State. I mean, I don't know that it would be completely out of the question to see him campaigning there. The question is whether Mitt Romney would want it. I mean, certainly it has helped him to get a little bit of a boost from the president, but this is also a state where 21% of voters in 2016 voted for Evan McMullin, who, you know, ran this independent third-party campaign specifically on the premise of opposing Donald Trump. So if Utah, you know, deep red state, but still a state where there is a serious anti-Trump contingent.
Speaking of 2020, Brian, let me come to you. And Brad Thor, conservative author, made some news this weekend about Republican primary moving forward the next cycle.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. You know, we're going to hear about a lot of, you know, non-traditional candidates in the next 2 years, probably on the Democratic side and apparently on the Republican side as well. Brad Thor is this famous author of spy thrillers. He was a big Trump skeptic a couple of years ago. He reluctantly came into the fold, but now he says he's willing to primary the president if others don't. In fact, by the end of the day yesterday on Twitter, he was saying, that's it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to run. We'll see how serious he is about this, but his message, speaking with the Daily Caller, tweeting, etc., speaking with right-wing outlets, is that he does believe the president needs to be primaried. He expects other challenges as well. But one of the tweets from Thor, he said, imagine how much America could accomplish with a mentally stable president unburdened by scandal who understood how government works. Those are pretty strong words from a well-known conservative saying the president's unfit for office and needs to be challenged. I think we're going to see a lot of other challenges on the right, but this is one that already, again, like I said, 88 weeks before the Iowa caucuses, is putting his hand up in the air and saying he'll do it.
But Kelly, let's look at this from the perspective of, I mean, Donald Trump running had nearly 100%, if not 100%, name recognition. Brad Thor does not have that. What's the plausibility of a conservative author like Mr. Thor coming in and being a real contender when the president has been running for re-election from the first day of his administration?
Yeah, Victor, I think he does have some problems. Now, he does have more name recognition than your average politician. He's a very well-known author, New York Times bestseller. He's got a lot of fans. And it's funny, I think, you know, this came as a surprise to people, but he's got to have been thinking about this for a while. I found this Q&A with him, with his publisher, and they asked him, which historical figure do you most identify with? And he said Ronald Reagan. So I have a feeling this has been in his mind for a while, and he's just sort of taking the opportunity. I have to say also in that Q&A, they asked him, what do you like to do when you're not writing? And he said, working out and shooting. So not your typical political hobbies there. And I think that, he's been a very strong critic of Donald Trump, and a lot of people like him for that. I will say, though, that he does have some baggage, and one of those things is his view of Islam. He has a very, very hard stance against Islam. He's actually said that ISIS, Al-Qaeda, that's the true Islam. And I think that a lot of people are going to be upset when they go digging and find some of those old interviews that he's given.
Well, we should also remember President Trump told Anderson Cooper that Islam hates us. So he was elected and is now at least the front runner. Not if you ask us.